All right, so learning how to use this swap to presenter mode. I hope you can see that without too much interference, and we'll go. So we should be about here, understanding expectations. It looks kind of like we're almost done, but we do actually have a bit of stuff to do. Understanding expectations. I'm going to go quickly through this, guys. I hope that's okay, because I think that it's kind of basic. And yeah, the diagram here shows that quite good, though. The idea is we have to bring people together. It's kind of an education that we have to do with our customers. Now, when I say that, we don't do that in a sort of a condescending way, as in that, you know, they're stupid or anything. But it's the idea is that they don't know what's possible. They may think that something is possible which isn't possible, in which case they're going to be unhappy. They're going to be dissatisfied, and we have to somehow educate them on what is possible and what isn't possible. That's actually part of the customer service job. And so making them aware of the possible. And that's actually part of what we call the can do. This is what I can do. This is what we can do to make this happen. And so it may mean that we have to disabuse them of some ideas that they have of things that they think can happen, which cannot happen. And so we tell them what can happen, keeping it positive, but also keeping it real. All right, so these two terms here that we could talk about is the high touch and the low touch. High touch, what we're doing is that the person is able to have a more sort of interpersonal experience with the service desk. That means that they might be one-on-one with the customer service rep. Might be a customer service rep coming to visit them, or at least on the phone with them. That's going to be a high touch situation. A low touch situation is the opposite of that. There may not be a customer service rep directly related to them in that interaction. So low touch is going to be your self-service things. High touch is going to be your account manager type person who actually, you know, only has a couple of customers and deals with them sort of in a daily way. That actually is a thing for big company accounts. So Arito is going to have some accounts like this where you have somebody in the organization of Arito who works with a large company that has a lot of Arito products, and they're sort of just with them all the time, and they're actually part of their planning. That would be very, very high touch. Whereas low touch is you and me going to the matrash and paying our traffic fine. You know, we don't talk to anybody. We get the service that we need, but we're doing it without sort of too much interaction. So did we talk about these things? I don't know why this seems so familiar to me. It seems like I did talk to you about it. Does this sound right? I don't know, in which case we can go through it more quickly, I suppose. But external and internal help desk, downstairs, the people downstairs below me, that's an internal help desk because the people that they're servicing are in the same organization, get paid by the same company. External is going to be Arito dealing with their customers. Yeah. All right. So the thing that you should get out of this slide is that the customer service is so important to keeping that customer, right? The interaction that the customer service has with the customer will affect whether that customer, if they're external customer, if they go to another company or whatever. And so very, very important that that you know you're always respectful. It doesn't mean that you always give them exactly what they want, but you listen to them and understand what they want. There's lots of good videos on YouTube about customer service that you could look at and see this. I've been watching some on A&E, and it's Southwest Airlines. You know, the customer service reps, what they have to deal with on stuff. It's kind of funny, actually. Southwest Airlines, they have to deal with some really tough customers. Anyways, if you watch any of those, you'll enjoy that. The other thing is, I did give you a link earlier on in this set of slides for a LinkedIn course. So if you guys will get a LinkedIn account, which is a good idea anyways, get a LinkedIn account because LinkedIn helps you to network around. So when you go looking for a job, that'd be a good thing. But if you get a LinkedIn account, you can follow the link that's earlier in this set of slides to some online learnings for customer service. And you know, it sort of talks about these things. Now, the service level agreement is mentioned here already. I don't know if you've heard that term before. service level agreement, we actually have a whole lesson just on service level agreement. And the service level agreement, it's like a contract between the service desk and the rest of the company if you're an internal service desk, or it could be, for example, with an external customer, you still have a service level agreement. Let me give you an example of that. So if you went with Arito and you bought an Arito package, that Arito package will come with a whole lot of words and a contract that you sign. If you went through and looked at the contract that you signed, all of those paragraphs in that contract, you would realize that what you actually have is a service level agreement. A service level agreement is going to say, this is the service that you get, this is what we guarantee, this is how much you pay, okay, and this is who you'll talk to. All of those things are outlined in the service level agreement. Service level agreement is kind of like, it's a part of the contract between the customer and the organization, which deals with the IT support that they get for that service, for whatever that product is. So with Arito, it's IT focused anyways, so there's going to be a different service level agreement for the person who has 64 gigabytes of data per day or whatever, with the person that has like 24, right? So depending on the level of service that you pay for, you're going to have a different service level agreement. Now, the idea of the chain, we actually have a diagram which represents this, the service delivery chain. Service delivery chain is going to be from the people that provide the product or service to the customer. It's going to include the service desk in there. And I think we've got that here. Yes, we have the service desk. You see, they are the actual point of contact. The customer is on the other end of this arrow where I'm pushing my cursor at the moment, right? And you see back in there, we have our external service providers, as it says, but you see the arrows going forward and backwards. This actually represents something that we talked about before, which was our escalation. If there's an issue comes from the customer to the help desk and we can't solve it at the help desk, we escalate it up through the chain. But the other thing is that the chain then is going to provide that support that comes the other way. And the service level agreement governs that. Okay, so managing expectations. I told you a few slides ago that what we want to do is we tell the user what is possible, what we can do for them. And some of that is recorded in the service level agreement. These are things that the customer is going to expect of us. They expect us to be responsive, and we can measure that. So some of the responsiveness is going to be just on how quickly we answer the phone, but it will also be on how long it takes us to answer an email, how long it actually takes us to close out a ticket. All of those things are part of our responsiveness. And so that's mentioned there. So it's about the time. You can think of responsiveness as how long it takes from the time that the customer contacts you till you start sort of working on the issue or solving the issue. Responsiveness is also a term that we use for our applications that we use in a computer system. So you can think of that as so it could be over a network right now. What is the response time on the network? From the time that we initiate a query on the network until we get something back. So that's the way that you can think about it, I think. All right, so these things are about us being a human being on the service desk. What is our caring attitude? If you really care about solving people's issues for them, if that really is something that you wake up in the morning and want to do, then probably working at a service desk is the right place for you. If you don't care, maybe it's not the job for you. So yeah, you need to have a caring attitude to do that. It has to be the type of thing where you actually enjoy helping people. Now, a lot of people do, and you might be one of those people that likes helping people. If you are, service desk for you. Skill, obviously, you can't really help them if you don't know how to do anything. So that's what that's about, right? You should have something that you can offer them in terms of that. Now, peer-to-peer support sounds like a good thing, right? What we're talking about there is the customers actually helping each other. Sounds good, right? It saves us having to help them. It's something that we really want to discourage, because when they help each other, then we start getting modifications of the system that are not documented. And so after a while, if there's a lot of customers helping each other and doing reconfigurations and changing things and installing things, etc., on our systems, pretty soon it gets out of control. And then we get to a point where we really can't support them. So we try and discourage that. And what we have to do to discourage that, we don't tell them you can't solve your own problems, you can't help each other. What we do is we make sure that we are providing that service so that they don't get frustrated and then go and try and fix it themselves. So yeah, fixing it themselves, customers will do that if we frustrate them enough. If we don't provide the service, they will do it themselves, or they'll find each other help. And then we get to a system, because they're not going to document that. When they do that, they're not going to tell you, oh, I did this, right? I changed these IP addresses. Probably we have a system to make it so that they can't. But supposing they could, we could pretty soon get to a situation where the whole system is out of control. All right, so here's about the human side of that as well. Being available. There's responsiveness. We answer the phone within 20 seconds. We respond to voice. So those things are all about responsiveness. Being willing. I think that's covered in the idea that we want to help people. We want to help people. It's something that actually motivates us. It's not something that we hate to do. Something that we actually enjoy doing. And being able, do we have the skills to actually help people? So we've got these terms, and I hope that they make sense to you. Abandon rate. If the customer calls up the service desk and before you answer the call, they hang up, that's an abandoned call, right? They abandoned, they basically gave up. And so we can measure that, right? We can measure how many calls the call rang out before anybody answered it. That's abandon rate. And that's a bad thing. If that number is high, we have a high abandon rate, that means that we're not answering the phone soon enough. All right, now severity, that has to do with what we call the impact of an incident or a problem. The impact, severity, basically how many people are impacted by this incident, and what is the impact? How much stuff have they lost by this? That would be our severity or our impact. Escalating, used that word a few times already. Escalate means that we raise it to another level. We get more resources to apply to solving the issue. That's escalating. It's a thing that we do to get things done when it doesn't seem to be progressing. We call in the management, or else we get some more technical skill applied to the resolution. Okay, customer satisfaction and empathy. We talked about that at the start, right? If the user feels that they're being understood, they're going to be more likely to be satisfied. That's the thing that we need to do, is really, that's a key thing, and we'll say it over and over again. When the customer has a problem with us, we listen to them. That's the first thing we do. We don't start out saying, oh, I'm going to solve your problem. Bum, bum, bum. Here's your solution. We listen to them, because as they're talking to us, we're probably going to learn something about the issue that we didn't know straight away. And so we actually need to take that time and listen to them, and also to let them get their emotions out, because then we are feeling that emotion that they feel. That is a human communication, which is not going to happen otherwise. And it's kind of important for them to feel that somebody understands them. Remember, we had a slide that one of these great sociologists, whatever, said that the greatest human need is the need to feel that you're understood. And so we need to bring that to the service desk, so that we're understanding our customer. The only way you're going to understand is listen to them say all the things they got to say before we jump in and start sort of tweaking things. All right, so I think I made that point. The can-do attitude, which is not using negative words. We tell them what is possible. Goes back to a slide I talked about a minute ago, which is we're educating them and what is the possible. This is what I can do to help. That's the thing here, is about, as opposed to the opposite, which is the negative, which is like to say, no, I can't do that. No, we can't do that. We replace those things. These are things that we don't do. We don't say no to this and no to that. What we say is, this is what I can do. So that's what that's all about. Okay, going the extra mile. The idea being that the customer has an expectation and we delight our customers. That's been talked about, using those kind of terms in lots of customer service things. Is what have you done to delight the customer? That is, you gave them something which was more than they expected. And those customers, once the customer is delighted, they go away and they talk to other people about how good this particular services. So that's a good idea. The extra mile, the idea, I hope it's pretty obvious. I mean, yeah, you have to go 1 mile, but if you went 2 miles, that's going the extra mile. I don't know if we need to talk about that too much. The idea there is you can't really know exactly what the customer is going to do. We do the best that we can. What you can know is that actually having some empathy and listening to them is going to give you a better result. Okay, so service level agreements, as suggested in this slide, it's part of a concept of contractual. The service level agreement will be in the customer's hand. They'll look at that. That's what they're going to expect. Service level agreement is going to have things in it like, how long they have to wait on the phone, how long they have to wait for their email to be responded to, how long, how many, what is the availability of the system? Availability is a measure of the time that the system is up and running over a month, as represented as a percentage of the total time in that month. So these things are all written to the service level agreement, and you have to sort of keep that. It's contractual. If you don't do those things, then there's some bad thing that happens to you, and it might be to do with money. And I'm not talking about you personally in the customer service role, but I mean the customer service function may lose money or whatever because of it. Okay, can you do this? I'm not going to ask you to do it now because we don't really have time. So when we finish this lesson, can you talk to somebody else in the group about this idea? Imagine an unhappy customer comes to you in the service desk. How does that help you? It says here, it's a great asset. An asset is something that gives you a benefit in the future. What benefit in the future could you possibly have from an unhappy customer coming to you? Don't tell me the answer right now. Get a partner and come up with an answer, and maybe you can, how are you going to communicate that to me? I'll open a Dropbox. That's what I'll do. I'll open a Dropbox for this activity, and you just put a few notes about how an unhappy customer helps you in the service desk. And I'll give you a hint. It's something to do with, knowing what your weaknesses are. I'll leave it at that. I think you get the idea, right? All right, so management of anything requires measurement. You can't manage what you don't measure. You have to measure it so that you can manage it. And so how are we going to measure it? Well, one thing we can do is we can just ask our customers, what'd you think of this? What'd you think of that? And how we can ask them is we can call them up, do a customer survey on the phone, or we can send them a link to something like SurveyMonkey or something, and they answer some questions, or we can monitor calls. So monitoring, we can have, and you would have heard this, right? When you've gone to some like a bank or some other customer service, you called them up with an issue, and you go on to a queue, and then while you're waiting in the queue, it says, this call will be monitored for training and quality purposes. Well, what they're doing is they record the call. Then afterwards, the customer service rep can listen to the recording, and maybe their manager can listen to the recording, and then they can say, oh, well, you did this good, you did that, you could have done that better, that kind of thing. So that's what we mean by monitoring, is that they're going to record the call, and then they're going to look at it and see what we can do better. Okay, so what's happening in the service desk? Service desk has moved to 24/7 because it's moved onto the cloud, right? And so we've got these low-touch self-service websites where you can go and do a lot of your customer service there. You don't have to talk to a person. And then we've got these all around the world service desk locations, so that you might pick up a phone and call somebody, and you think you're talking to somebody here in Doha. It turns out you're talking to somebody in Cebu or Cairo or Dubai. Now, I mentioned those because that's actually happened to me. I phoned up the bank here in Qatar, and I was talking to somebody in Cairo. I phoned up the Expedia, my travel service, and I was talking to somebody in Cebu, right? Another time I phoned up a bank and I was talking to somebody in Dubai, and I called a local number. So, I mean, this is what's happening. They're using cloud services, even routing your phone calls through it. So it's voice over IP, so technology that's sort of like Skype or whatever, but they're doing that and you might not even be aware of it, that you're talking to somebody somewhere else. Now, why is that a trend? Well, lots of reasons. It might be cheaper to get to use people in another country. Maybe their salaries are less. It could be that they have some expertise there. Another thing is, yeah, that they're awake, because differences in time zones. So we can have people in the middle of the night answering calls from Cebu, and it's not the middle of the night for them. It's only the middle of the night for us. Okay, so that happens a lot. What did I do there? Accounting. All right, yeah. So I'm not even going to talk about this too much. Just to say that if you've got an internal service desk, somebody has to pay for that. Well, how are they going to pay for that? Well, usually they pay for it on the basis of what they do. So how are we going to know what they do? Well, we record all the calls. We record all the stuff that's going into the service desk tracking system, and based on that, at the end of a year and going forward, we can make a budget and say, well, this is how much service you need. This is how many people we need, and yeah. So then the money will come out of the company budget. Or it could be if you could have customers that actually pay to use the service. So for example, when you buy, a Microsoft product, right? If you paid for that product and you use the correct code, whatever, then you have access to Microsoft support. If you didn't, you don't. You know what I mean? So you actually paid for that when you bought the service. I guess, yeah. And so within the Microsoft organization, they would receive money from the purchase of the Microsoft products, and that money keeps the company going, and they have people who do the planning, the management, and they divide up the monies, that the income, and there's other. I'm very much simplifying this, I'm sorry, because we're kind of in a hurry, but you can see that's how they get paid. They're not sort of getting paid on a dollar basis day to day from the company just for being there. That is taken from the revenues. Different types of customer service: post-sales support and pre-sales support. What I've been talking to you about the Microsoft there, that was a post-sales support. Pre-sales support, that's where they're going to tell you what products are available and try and get you to do more things. I get phone calls from Arito all the time. Do I want to increase my the service that I have from them, to have faster internet or whatever? You'd say that person calling me up, they are in a service desk, but they're pre-sales support. You could say that they're like a salesperson, as opposed to when I call them up and say, my Wi-Fi is not working, can you help me? That's going to be post-sales support. Yes, so I hope we got this idea that service desk people can be all around the world. That's kind of a good thing. It's only possible because of the internet. And so you could have somebody in Cebu, you could have somebody in Cairo, you could have somebody in Bangalore who is providing that support, and people might not even know. The other thing is that service IT, customer service support, that's become a sort of a larger industry. This is where we started with this set of slides, is that this has become a larger industry. And so because of that, it's being professionalized. And that's why we have sort of like people making books like this book here, which is our textbook. So that's why we have that. So it didn't show up on anything, but because it is an area where people can study a lot, learn how to do this better. And that's probably a good thing. And so because of that, you can get certified. You can be a certified sort of service desk person. And so we have this HDI certification. There's other certifications that go with it. Of course, we use more technology. Anything that's going onto the cloud is going to have a great reliance on technology. And the mobile sort of goes with that. I mean, everybody's got 4G now, and a lot of people have 5G. So that just means that, if you can use the interface of your phone, then you have all kinds of computer ability at your hands. And certainly you could use a service desk app on a phone. And that happens. So that means as a customer, you could access an app on your phone. Matrash 2 is one of those. But also as a customer service rep, you could be using something like a phone or an iPad or whatever. You don't have to be a laptop. You could be using something like that and be mobily, and especially in time of a pandemic. So for like that, I can't go to work. But can you still work as a customer service rep? Yes, you can. And that's actually happened to me. I called up, I'm having all these problems with the Rito. It's pretty obvious. But I called up a Rito and I was talking to a customer support. It was a lady, and talking to her about the issue that I had, and I heard her children talking in the background. She was at home just because of the pandemic. So she is doing her work from home and customer support. Kind of hard, but there you go. So absolutely, that's possible now. So if you can do it from home here in Doha, why couldn't you do it from home while you're in the Seychelles or anywhere else? Well, of course, if you had a good enough link network and using a VPN and fast service provision, yeah, why not? Of course you could. The idea of the self-healing systems, the internet itself is a self-healing system. What we mean by that is, supposing one link in the internet is out, what will happen with the internet is because it's packets that are traveling over the network, the packets are individually travel over the network individually. And so if one server router on the network is not able to be used, then the routing protocol allows for those packets to go somewhere else and still get through to the end location. That's, in that way, the internet itself is self-healing. And so that concept of being able to reroute, having protocols that allow the packets to travel in different ways, that is very important for network. We call it self-healing. Preparing their own problems. Multi-channel support showing up here in the diagram with these images. Do you see some of these things be familiar to you? Twitter, Facebook, SMS, email, telephone. So the idea being that our customers can get service through these different, well, even social media. So for example, there's lots of cloud-based customer service systems. We're going to use OTRS, but there's some others like Freshdesk, etc., that allow the customer service reps to communicate with the customer using Facebook and Twitter, etc. No, it sounds kind of weird, but that happens. Outsourcing, I think we got the idea of that. I'm hoping so. The idea of outsourcing is that people who are not on our payroll are doing our service for us. And so instead of having a service desk of people that we pay to do the service desk, we send some money to some company, and they may be in our own town, or they may be somewhere else. And all they do is service desks. And maybe they do service desks for like 10 different companies. That's their business, service desks. Okay. And so that's outsourcing. We pay them money, they give us this function. And so that's the idea of that. I hope you can see why people would do that. I mean, so if you are outsourcing your service desk, what you've got is something which is scalable. We're always looking for scalable solutions in IT. What I mean by scalable is we can go from 10 customers to 1,000 customers in 1 month, and we don't have to build a whole lot of infrastructure to do that, because somebody in Bangalore or Cairo or Dubai or Cebu has got all that infrastructure ready, and we just have to pay them a monthly fee, and up it comes. All right. And so this idea is going out throughout our computing systems, and that's why we go on the cloud. We got cloud services that work in a similar way, but definitely for outsourcing of the service desk functionality, that works quite nicely. We don't have to build a service desk. We can get somebody else to just do it for us on a monthly pay. I've already mentioned the web-based support, especially for your low touch. You go to a site, and there's lots of options on that site that you can do things like pay your traffic tickets, change your car registration from one person to another. There's lots of things you can do on there. Matrash, I gave you that example, but there's so many others. Okay, so there we go. I spoke a lot and we finished that. That's what I was trying to do. I'm going to stop talking now and take questions. How about that? In recording. Go to the content and go to not assignments, there's no assignment. Go to project, and you'll see that I have a semester-long project for you. because we're kind of short on time, I am going to allow you to do this in teams of 2. So it can be a joint project. Last semester when I did this, I made it individual, but you can do this together. Now, because you're going to do it together, that means that it's quite possible, maybe likely that I will interview you on what you are doing in your project. So here's the project. What it is you have to create a manual on how to, it's a training manual. And that training manual is how do you do customer service? And so the training manual is going to be broken up into 5 things that we're going to mark. Okay. And so at the end there's a presentation, right? Presentation. So in that presentation, I can ask you questions like okay, there's 2 people in your team. Who did what? Okay. And what you did here? And please explain to me this. So that basically that's to show that you've done that work. But in the first chapter, you're going to create an index, which you could say a table of contents. And then you're going to talk about communication to customers. All right, so we haven't covered everything in communication to customers. That's coming up in the next week, but that's something for you to look at right now. Communication with customers. How do we communicate with our customers? If I had my own service desk, what would I put in a manual, which is like a training manual for my customer service reps, so that they would be the best customer service reps for our organization? And do's and don'ts communicating with customers. That's our first chapter, and you can see we got some other chapters that we add to it. So that's a project. I am going to let you do it in teams of 2, not teams of 3. Don't come and ask me, can I have a 3rd person? You can do it by yourself, or you can do it with one other person. Okay, so you don't have to be in a team. You can do it by yourself, but there you go. That's a you see that this project is going to continue until the end of the semester. Okay, so that's what I want you to have a look at now. I'm going to stop talking now.